So the purpose of this video is to describe a little bit more in depth how we create these sub-initiatives. So keep in mind what we talked about earlier in our last video. We start to create the sub-initiatives from the sub-initiative hypothesis. So remember that the hypothesis basically encapsulated our approach to how we were going to obtain the sub-initiative outcome. And we said that we look at the relationship and the hypothesis between the assumptions, the actual sub initiative, what we're going to produce, and how those things will be used to produce the sub initiative outcome itself. And in that, we usually have a format which is given, if, then. Given is the assumption, if is the actual sub initiative itself, what we're creating, and the then part is the sub-initiative outcome. So if we're creating this, we'll produce this outcome. And so we'll look at that if statement from the sub-initiative hypothesis to start looking or start forming our actual sub-initiative. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that you've created an initiative for the year already. And just to refresh our minds from earlier, we actually said that we were opening a new office in Asia, right? As an example, and so we came up with some acceptance criteria. And one of our acceptance criteria for opening this new office is that we'll have knowledgeable people that can actually help our clients in the Asian office. Well, one thing we want to do, and when we create this office, is we created the initiative, we created acceptance criteria. So sometimes the easiest way to create our sub initiatives are to take off and look at the acceptance criteria that exists for a given initiative and just try to build one or two of the acceptance criteria. And then you actually verify that that works. And in subsequent quarters and different sub initiatives, you can actually take care of other acceptance criteria. And in this way, you're iteratively building upon the work that you've done before to produce the work that you're going to do in the future. Other approaches to actually building your sub initiatives are sometimes instead of building pieces of it, you build the whole thing, but you do it in a very light manner. And let me give you a for instance. I'm building a system that will actually process new loans for the company. And there's a lot that goes on with processing the loans. And there's a lot of different scenarios that could occur. But maybe in the first pass, we just take care of the first scenario, the main scenario, right? Try that and make sure it works. And then everything else, all the other loan processing, for any other scenario other than the main one, the most likely case, it's done manually. And then we look at, work with the business to figure out, well, what parts are most manually intensive? And we actually build that scenario next, right? So you can actually build the whole thing, but just add in scenario by scenario until the biggest results of value and output are achieved. There's sometimes, because of the way things are constructed, that it may be more beneficial to actually build the architecture for everything and then add in pieces. Now, we tend to want to shy away from this in most cases because if you build the architecture, the basis for everything, and then add on pieces, most likely you'll be in a situation where you can't use what you've built. And if you can't use what you've built, then there's no way that you can obtain any of the outcome until more of whatever needs to be created is actually produced. And that's a situation you don't want to be in. We want to actually build things in a way that you can obtain the outcome or at least pieces of it up front, because I'm going to verify that my approach to obtaining the outcome will actually work. And the only way to verify it is to try it out. So we tend to stay away from trying to build the architecture first and then adding on to it. I'd rather build either a piece of it or um, build the basis of it and add in more bells and whistles, more functionality as we go. And that way it's usable and we can prove out our hypothesis. But again, this is how you want to build those sub initiatives. When I actually build it, whether I'm taking the acceptance criteria from an initiative or building things incrementally, the way I want to do it when I name it, again, I'm going to name it with a verb in its present tense, followed by the object of that verb, right? And then I'm always going to go ahead and take the acceptance criteria. How do I know that this thing is complete? I'll ask myself that question. And I'll actually, all the characteristics that must exist so that I know that it's complete, I write those things down as acceptance criteria. And then I put all that inside of the ticket of the user story. Um, and I'm kind of good to go from there for my sub initiative, right? It's self contained. All right. That kind of ends our series on how do we create these sub initiatives. If you have any questions, just send me a message and we'll try to get you more detail. But until then, thank you for paying attention to the video and I hope this helps.